Coogs House. The Houston Cougars got a brand new play caller in the third ward, but what kind of plays will he be calling, and who's he going to be calling them out to?
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. If you're a U of H fan or just a hater who came to stop by, please be sure to subscribe down below. That way you can listen to Cougs in your newsfeed each and every day. Appreciate you making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. It's where you found us. It's so good to see you again. We are doing a giveaway every 250 subscribers, and the next one is at 2,000. We're just over 1,800 as we speak. So hit subscribe, help us get there. Like and comment on the videos to let us know you are in that contest. If, after talking all about college football today, you're just like all college football out, you just don't know what to talk about, tell us in the comments down below how you're doing in your fantasy football playoffs. I need a little bit more of Lamar Jackson myself. All right, so all kinds of fun stuff to talk about today. Now, today's episode is going to be looking at the new offensive coordinator in Houston, Kevin Barbay. We're looking at what he brings. I look at some new faces that committed to football over the weekend, and what potential new faces could be coming in the final segment. Now, I will add, if you're looking for A&M coverage, Houston A&M coverage from the basketball game over the weekend, we did a full live post game on Cougars After Dark Saturday night. That is in all the feeds as well. We'll be doing more basketball this week, but football just made too big a splash on Sunday to turn it down. If you know me, you know I love talking basketball. There's a lot of excitement and turnover in the football program right now. So obviously that takes first billing today. We're going to do some of that today, and then tomorrow we'll do some talk about recruiting and new faces coming in. Basketball's got a fun week coming up with Texas State and the get right kind of game on Thursday. So plenty more to talk about as we get closer to that. I've rambled too long. Let's talk about this new guy, Kevin Barbay. Now, Kevin Barbay comes in and most immediately from Mississippi State, where he's the offensive coordinator there. Mississippi State was down to like their third quarterback and second running back by the time the season ended. And so I have a hard time counting some of that stuff against him that went not so great there. Worth pointing out that even with all that working against him there, he did have an offense that averaged 330 yards and 22 points per game in the SEC, again, with at sometimes a third-string quarterback and backup running back. What was App State? They had he was offensive coordinator there, and they had 455 yards and 35 points per game. While he was at Central Michigan, they had 445 yards and 32 points per game. He's run some electric offenses. I appreciate that he's got that experience tied in with different places in Texas. He's been Stephen F. Austin, been in North Texas, Lamar, A&M Commerce, Baylor. He's originally from Nederland, so he's been all around the state of Texas, right? He's just a 4-year-old guy. He's very much an up-and-coming coach in college football. And I will say, it was interesting, when I saw he was at App State in 2022 and went back and watched him, that was the year they beat Texas A&M in College Station. Texas A&M was ranked top 10 at the time, one of their best teams ever based on recruiting stats and like they always do over at A&M. And he came in and ran the football down their throat with Appalachian State. Other marquee big Power 5 type wins on his resume as well in his time across, developing football programs. I will say that some people have accurately pointed out he's only been places 1 or 2 years at a time. He may be a constant climber. And while that may be the case, I think an OC at school like Houston in the Big 12, Power 5 football, great recruiting ground like Houston to set in, I feel like the only logical next step would be like the kind of guy that goes from OC to like a head coaching job somewhere else within a high major football conference. And frankly, for what it's worth, it would take a couple years for him to build that resume. And that would also imply that he did very well here. And so I'm okay with that. If that's the knock on the guy, is he's a career climber. Use us to do really, really well and then climb. That's fine. I feel differently about that as a coordinator, I guess I should say, than I do a head coach. But I thought it was interesting that his run game, went back and watched some of the A&M game from Appalachian State. His run game pairs fairly well, I think, with Emmanuel Gavi and Willie Fritz, in the sense that he runs a lot of 11 personnel. He's a guy that really loves to have a tight end on the field. He kind of uses tight ends both as a typical online scrimmage, tall, longer guy tight end, and an in the backfield H-back tight end. He has both kinds of guys on his rosters, it looks like to me, as I'm looking across his stuff. In multiple instances at Central Michigan and at Appalachian State, it looked like he did all kinds of, defensive coaches call it window dressing. Offensive coaches call it orbit motions and those kinds of things, but a lot of extra movement at the snap of the football side to side. So an orbit motion would be like the guy's motioning and then goes behind the quarterback. Jet motion would be where he goes in front of the quarterback. All kinds of guys, but he's got all kinds of motion happening at the snap of the football. And it looks like to me, especially as he's been in some of these smaller programs, knocking off Power 5 programs, a lot of that deception kind of stuff is just to kind of get the defense on their heels at the snap of the football. But it also kind of disguises what they're doing. So, like if they only run, let's say 6 total run plays each direction, so maybe you go and call it 12. But then they have on Seattle, we run, sweep left. But on Seattle special, we run sweep left, but we do the orbit motion to pull the guy back. Or they do different kinds of things, and only the guy has to know the orbit motion and the quarterback or whatever have to know 2 or 3 specific different jobs. All of that different, again, as a defensive coach, call it window dressing kind of things, make it very simple on the offensive side because you're really running 18 different ways to run the same play. If you got the 6 offensive plays, 6 running plays to the right, 6 running plays to the left, you can run them another 7 or 8 different ways apiece by putting a little bit of dressing on top. Right, that's why they call it dressing. And by just putting that dressing on the top, the defense now has to be like, well, okay, is so-and-so can get the ball? Is that orbit guy going to ever get the ball in the reverse? If he gets the ball in the reverse, is he ever able to pass the ball? All those kinds of different things and just pull guys in different directions. I like how well he utilizes the H-back, the shorter tight end, not quite a fullback, not quite a tight end type guy in the backfield in those motions, both as a blocker and a pass catcher. That was really interesting to see how he uses kind of things. He also, for its worth, comes in, and this will be the last new coaching note I have for the moment. I'd love to do some more breakdowns. I watch more tape on this guy, but this just happened on Sunday. Of quarterback coach, he's bringing in quarterback coach Sean Bell from Baylor. I think I saw that Sean Bell's brother is also going to be on staff as an analyst or something like that. That's mostly of note because Sean Bell is the connection at Baylor that I guess people are tying to had Baylor in the final running for nearby Willis product, DJ Lagway. DJ Lagway, if you have not paid attention, high school football is one of the best and most electric high school quarterbacks in America. From Willis, Texas, just up the road from the University of Houston. But he's been committed to Florida for a while now. There's talk that he may flip at some point because there's some Florida seems kind of in an iffy spot, and Napier kind of feels like next year might be a make or break year, and do you commit to a coach for his make or break year or whatever? I don't know that he flips to Houston or not, although I have said on Twitter that I would do the one chip challenge live on air if he flipped to Houston. I'd be that ecstatic about it. I'd do whatever it took. But I will say that worth continuing to build those relationships. We see quarterbacks all the time in modern college football go somewhere for a year or two. The coaching staff falls apart and they leave. It seems like Napier is next year. He's got to win the SEC, to have a chance to even hold on to that job, or got to win a whole lot of games anyway to hold on to that job in Florida. And if things start crumbling down, it's not a bad idea to have guys that know Lagway and that kind of stuff. Again, and that also just recruited Texas like Sean Bell has. I don't know that it leads to the flip or not. People on Twitter are running with that. I do think it's interesting to see that Sean Bell comes from Baylor and Kevin Barbay comes from the systems he's come from, and meshing those systems will be interesting. Barbay has a lot of play action, quarterback on the move, because all that same kind of misdirection stuff then sets up his deeper pass game. He likes to manipulate space downfield with the way that play action pulls people up and those kind of things. And so how Sean Bell and the quarterback coaching ties into that on an on-the-field instance. Obviously, off-field, they're recruiting the areas they know best. On-the-field kind of stuff will be interesting to watch. I think it does work. I'm just interested to see. Now, if you're thinking about putting parts together and making sure that things work for your ride or die, that's right, your vehicle of choice here, you should go to eBay Motors to get that done, because passion, drive, and patience are what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors does everything you need to make your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks to exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easiest to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, so a lot of things to come on Barbay, and we'll know more about Barbay as he's officially announced and spring practices get underway, and we see what kinds of guys he pulls in the transfer portal, and we'll see a lot more of how the pieces all fit together. But remember deception, remember motions, remember running the football to open up other things. That's the kinds of things that Barbay likes to do, and that he's done successfully at all of his stops, even with second and third string guys, Mississippi State, against SEC opponents. He had some success, relatively speaking. But Houston had a host of new commits over the weekend. And I'm going to kind of go through quickly rapid fire in the second segment of some of the highlights from them. Kendra Gant, I keep saying Grant, I keep typing Grant, comes over from Louisiana, formerly Louisiana Lafayette. He had the second highest PFF rating on their entire defense. He had 6 sacks, forced 3 fumbles, recovered 3 fumbles, had 64 tackles, defensive touchdown. But I was impressed with Kendra Gant at Louisiana, former Louisiana Lafayette, that he lined up at 7 different positions over the course of the season, different linebacker spots, different down safety spots, rushed the passer off the edge some. Very versatile football player. So be on the lookout for what kinds of ways that Coach Willie Fritz uses him. We obviously know that Sherwood has his defense set up, so we'll see how that all pairs up together. On the offense side of the football, I think a lot of people look at what the offensive line is going to look like. The answers we got so far are that it's going to have Dakota White somewhere on it. Dakota White comes from Louisiana Tech. Now, he's listed as an interior offensive lineman, which I thought was interesting because he started a bunch of games at tackle at Louisiana Tech. So we'll see where he fits in at the U of H. Over 700 snaps last year and just 2 sacks allowed, right? Like a very good pass rushing tackle in that system. Even if they move him to guard in our system, got to imagine that he still has the same kind of pass blocking capabilities. Was an all-conference honorable mention. Phil Steele put him on the all-conference team. A veteran, a grad transfer, 4-year guy. Really, really good to have in our locker room with that offensive line. Inversely, on the defensive line, they're adding Everett Rogers, a multi-year starter at Tulsa. Was at Tulsa that on starter on that team that beat Houston a couple years ago. He's gotten better each season. If you watch like his 2021 tape, you got to watch 2022 tape, got to watch 2023 tape. Analytically, the Pro Football Focus data also indicates that he's getting after it more. Even if his like raw stats, his tackles and tackles for loss might be roughly similar, his like pressure grade here and those kinds of things have also gotten better each year. So good developmental guy there, coming from Tulsa to Houston. Michael Batten, I'm not sure if he'd be a playmaker or not for us, but he's a grad transfer from Louisiana Monroe, led Louisiana Monroe in tackles last year as a linebacker. I'll be interested to see what he does. Houston area kid, so he come back home. Got to be excited about that. I do think linebacker is an area that Houston can improve at a lot in this season, and I think that'll be interesting to see how he handles it. Similarly, I think the biggest name, and the reason I've talked so fast to get to this guy is because I think it's the most interesting case here. Corey Platt is a former 3-star linebacker from the state of Arkansas, played at Tulane, played a lot in 2022, and then tore his Achilles in 2023, and he has committed to transfer to the University of Houston with Willie Fritz. Now, if we get the 2022 kid, we're getting a really, really good line. I know we're getting that kid, I guess, but that guy was really good at football. Right, really good linebacker with a lot of upside, a lot of future development, and like gonna be really, really good because he was a really good young football player at Tulane. Right. The issue is this Achilles injury is so challenging and so daunting to come back from, and frankly, it sucks to see it with such a young kid because you think of it as like a wear and tear injury that older guys get. Right. It typically takes at least a year to come back from. He got early enough in last season that doesn't take him out necessarily for next season. And then the truth is that you hear it most commonly. Guys will say it really takes you more like 18 months to be like yourself. So we'll see what kind of version of Corey Platt we get next season. He obviously is going to get the medical red shirt and all that kind of stuff for this past season. But I do think he was on projections to be a strong linebacker because he was such a good young linebacker in 2022. So, we may not get his ceiling, but I think the floor we're going to get at him is still pretty high. I'm excited about what he brings. And I frankly like that Willie Fritz is bringing him along because clearly it's a guy that he had a lot of investment in from a developmental standpoint at Tulane. Other transfer guys, Chris Davis is a defensive back from Southern University, HBCU there in Louisiana. So another Louisiana guy coming over, state of Louisiana guy coming over. I'm intrigued by Larry Crawford. Larry Crawford is a Georgia Military Institute offensive tackle transferring in. I'm intrigued because as a Georgia military guy, he's listed like 6'3", 275 or 280, depending on the listing you're looking at, right? And people be like, man, that's tiny for an offensive lineman. Here's the deal. Georgia military, I don't know what Larry Crawford's future looks like. Most of those dudes ain't going pro. And all those dudes are in the Army, right? So, he had to, at offensive lineman strength, be in the condition to do normal PT tests through the Army, right? And, I'm sure that there was some sort of leeway here, leeway there for in-season asking, right? But I'm intrigued by a couple years in Power 5 weight room, a couple off seasons where he doesn't have to train for the same PT tests, right? What does this guy's body look like with the mental and physical strength condition that comes with having been in a military institute? I think that molding, it gets me excited. I think that could be a really good off lineman to have in our O-line room. Other commitments from this weekend, as far as a true football player goes, and that's why we'll leave him on the new faces that are committed. Tre'Vell Frederick, 2024 class, was a Tulane commit at tight end, 6'3", 235 type guy. Was a Tulane commit at 3 stars, but had several other SEC offers, including Florida and Alabama. And so I can't tell from his high school tape, because tight end high school tape can be weird because it's a lot of quarterback dependent, opponent dependent, and I don't know what I'm looking at with it a whole lot. But clearly, folks that do thought really highly of him. He's a tight end commit. I like that he's a Willie Fritz tight end commit before. We know that, again, if he's bringing in Kevin Barbay, he's going to want those tight ends to be intricately involved in the offense. So bringing in freshmen again in the system and kind of learn the system fresh, no bad habit kind of kids is going to be really, really important as well. So I'm intrigued by Tre'Vell Frederick. I don't know what he'll look like on campus, and tight end's a tough position to play as a true freshman, right? I feel the same way, frankly, for what's worth, about a couple of the lone couple of offensive line 2024 high school kids we've got. I think they project really, really well. It's just a lot to ask those kids come in and play as a freshman at the offensive line group. So I'm excited about where that thing could go. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm excited about where it could go. The last two guys I want to mention on the new commits are two commits that I'm, as a basketball guy that loves coaching basketball, loves watching basketball, really excited about, because I remember growing up thinking that Julius Peppers was the coolest dude on the face of the earth. For those of you who don't know, Julius Peppers played football and basketball at the University of North Carolina. Was an all-everything football player, went to the NFL. I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer or not. I guess he played for Carolina Panthers, had a bunch of sacks, freak of nature defensive end kind of athlete, because he was also power forward from the Carolina men's basketball team. Houston is pulling in two different high school football players that did not play football until their senior year of high school, in DeMarcus Johnson and Darius Washington. Now, DeMarcus Johnson is from Fort Bend Marshall. Darius Washington is from Mansfield Lake Ridge up in DFW area. DeMarcus Johnson is listed everywhere between 6'7" and 6'9", always around 250, and he is throwing off the backboard, dunking it to himself kind of stuff. Big, tall, strong, athletic type guy, right? That big type of oh man, he's going to break a rim down kind of body, playing football, playing defensive end. Again, raw, played just the 1 year of high school, but has the tools. Darius Washington is a little bit shorter and stockier. I say a little bit. He's still 6'5", right? Listed at 235, Mansfield Lakeridge. He probably has more innate football talent to him, it looked like to me, as far as like getting his hands and rushing the passer and this kind of things, his hands on offensive linemen, getting into the contact and that kind of aspect of it. But both guys get to work with the Godfather, Brian Early, and learn defensive line again with no bad habits, right? High school basketball players, like very, very talented, big, strong high school basketball players from, frankly, for its worth, good high school basketball programs, really kind of diving into this dirty, dirty element that is defensive line play. I think they'll both be ends and pass rushers. I think that Early will turn them into good ones. They might be long-term projects. You might not hear their name again until like 2026. But keep an eye out for those two guys, DeMarcus Johnson, Darius Washington. I'm really, really intrigued by what Brian Early and the Houston Cougar coaching staff do with those two. Now, while they've had those guys committed this weekend, they do currently still need a couple of new bodies, right? I know that we were told at one point by a previous administration that the ship had sailed on 2024 recruiting, right? That was just never going to happen. Those guys were long, long gone, right? But the truth is that it hasn't happened yet. That those guys aren't gone yet. Um, Early signing day is December 20th. That is, I guess, what is that? Wednesday of this week. So see guys signing. That's when you see like Will a Lagway guy type flip or something by Wednesday. And then the more traditional later signing day is in January 15th. That's a lot of time for Willie Fritz and staff to get things going and get things moving in the right direction. They got a couple more offers out there over the weekend. DJ Douglas is a guy in the portal, so technically not the same kind of thing, I guess, but he's from Tulane, has a Houston offer. He's a DB. I feel, Fritz is a DB's guy. I feel like that's kind of a fairly safe bet. I thought it was interesting. Keith Cooper. Keith Cooper is a defensive lineman from Dickinson, also a Tulane transfer prospect. He played in all 25 games the last 2 seasons, a 3-star high school kid from Dickinson that went to Tulane on the D-line. So those guys could come into as well, right, if you're trying to build up your transfer portal guys. I will be interested to see by the 20th if they can get any high school kids flipped because they just got the OC in, they just got the quarterback coach in, et cetera, right? And if they can get some high school guys in by the 20th, that could change what happens later. And work with me here. Tulane, we've already seen a handful of Tulane guys get from a good Tulane program, get a Houston offer that are in the portal. They have their bowl game on December 28th. Now, their starting quarterback, Michael Pratt, is not playing in it, apparently. He's going to get ready for the Senior Bowl. But it looks like a lot of other guys that may have transfer to Houston potential, if you follow me, talented football players that may be waiting till the bowl game is over to engage in those kinds of things, right? And then they would have theoretically until the 15th to get here for the spring. I say that to say that I anticipate there being a wave of Tulane guys doing that. And that's not to say that I'm going to go poach a bunch or anything like that. I've even done research to poaching a bunch. But guys went to Tulane to play for Fritz. Fritz has a number of different Tulane guys on his staff. It makes sense that they'd want to continue to play for the coaches they committed to playing for, right? And they get to play Power 5 football and doing it. I feel like that's a no-brainer. So I feel like you'll see a handful of guys do that. And Fritz now will have the cachet with kids who recruited to Tulane but didn't have the Power 5 allure at the time. I think you'll see a couple of other guys fall in that same kind of mode after their teams have played bowl games. So I see this window between now and Wednesday as a key time to be like, can we flip anything in this early signing period before the 20th? And then while the 15th is technically still also high school date, I feel like if we can get whatever positions we still need filled after the 20th, you'll see a lot more of those guys filled into the transfer portal following the bowl games that come in the next couple of weeks, right? Now, Tulane being a big one because the obvious connections, this means the only one by any stretch. I do Yeah, I'm interested to see what you think as far as where you guys think Willie Fritz will lean into. I don't actually think he's going to be a big transfer portal guy in the long run of his tenure, but I think in the short run, he almost has to be. And he almost has to be because with how many like guys you graduate from last year's team, how many guys from Houston in the transfer portal themselves, and frankly, how much improvement you need to get done really, really quickly. You got to find ways to get bodies that are ready to play right now. Now, we both think like Parker Jenkins as a sophomore be able to play, you know, 50, 60 snaps a game next season, right? Like we both anticipate Boogie Johnson taking a bigger role in the offense. Thomas Smith, hopefully stepping up being a leader. If not, you find somebody, whether it's Wheele or Lucas Coley or whomever, right? Like you can find somebody to come in and play those spots. Maybe it's Kai Horton, right? He's a transfer from Tulane. Remember him from when he beat Houston a couple years ago at Tulane, right? Maybe somebody like that. But I think that the short-term transfer thing for Willie is going to be short-lived. He strikes me because of the way he talks about recruit and develop and all those kinds of things. That's hit my microphone. That's the bigger term play here. But in the short term, I think we got to hit the transfer portal pretty hard. And in the short term, I think we'll know a lot more about who we're looking for in the transfer portal once that signing day Wednesday has come and gone. Now, with all of that said, today was obviously a very football heavy episode. Tomorrow we'll be talking some to Brian. Brian Smith will be on here to talk about all kinds of things going on with Houston recruiting and what he's seeing in the national trends of things as we get closer to signing day. That'll be Tuesday. Wednesday, I'd like to get back into talking about basketball because you guys know I love the basketball program. I love this basketball. It's so much fun to watch. I feel absolutely gutted about Terrence Arsenault's Achilles injury, and we'll probably talk about how to replace those kinds of things Wednesday. Thursday, got a basketball game. Friday, we'll recap the game, etc. So make sure you hit subscribe. That way you can listen to the Houston Cougars in your newsfeed each and every day, wherever you get your podcasts. If you find us on YouTube, remember to subscribe so we can get to the 2,000 mark. Big gift giveaway, something there at 2,000. We're still figuring all that out. Thank you all so much again for making us your first listen of the day. You have a lot of options for your first listen. Only one is your daily Houston Cougar podcast. And appreciate you making us your first listen. For a second listen, I'm going to begin Locked On Big 12. Locked On Big 12 is hosted by Drake Toll. Drake's doing a great job covering the entire conference, top to bottom, the playoffs, the bowls, the transfers, the coaching changes, signing days, all of it. He's doing a great realignment even. People talking about blowing up the ACC. He's covering all of it. So make sure you go check that out as well. Locked On Cougs is a proud member of Locked On Podcast Network. And that means your team, our Cougs, Willie Fritz's Cougs, every day. Go Cougs.